My name is Helena, and I'm 32 years old. I've been married to my husband, Alexander, for over 5 years now. We met in college, and I thought I had found my soulmate. We built a life together, and everything seemed perfect. We'd spend our evenings cooking dinner together, watching our favorite TV shows, and planning our future. Alexander was my rock, my best friend, my everything. I trusted him with my life. I'd often joke that we were two peas in a pod, and I truly believed that. But little did I know, our perfect life was just a facade. I'd often receive mysterious phone calls from creditors, but Alexander would brush it off, telling me it was just a mistake. I didn't think much of it, assuming he was right. After all, he handled all our finances. But as time went on, I started noticing strange transactions on our bank statements. At first, I thought it was just an error, but the more I looked into it, the more I realized something was off. Alexander would get defensive when I asked him about it, telling me I was being paranoid. I didn't want to believe that the man I loved could deceive me, so I pushed the thoughts aside and focused on our life together. But the doubts lingered, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I sat at my kitchen table, sipping my coffee and staring at the stack of bills in front of me. Alexander walked in, kissed my cheek, and began making breakfast. I noticed a few unfamiliar charges on the credit card statement. "Hey, Alexander, do you know what these are?" I asked, handing him the statement. He glanced at it, his expression neutral, and said, "Oh, that must be the gym membership I signed up for." I raised an eyebrow. "You didn't tell me about a gym membership." He shrugged. "I didn't think it was a big deal." As the days went by, I started noticing more strange transactions. A loan application I hadn't filled out, a credit inquiry from a company I'd never heard of. I tried to brush it off, but the doubts lingered. One evening, Alexander came home late, smelling like perfume. "Where have you been?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "Just working late," he replied, avoiding eye contact. I began to feel uneasy, like something was off. I started checking our bank statements more frequently, and the discrepancies piled up. Alexander's explanations sounded hollow, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something from me. "Alexander, we need to talk," I said one night, my voice firm but controlled. "I've been noticing some strange transactions, and I think we should get to the bottom of this." He looked up from his phone, a mix of annoyance and guilt flashing across his face. "What's going on, Helena?" he asked, his tone dismissive. "You know exactly what I'm talking about," I said, my anger rising. "The credit inquiries, the loan applications, someone's been using our identity, and I think it's you." Alexander's expression changed, and for a moment I saw a glimmer of fear. But then his face hardened, and he said, "You're being paranoid, Helena. You're reading too much into this." I felt a chill run down my spine. Was I being paranoid, or was something seriously wrong? I knew I had to dig deeper to uncover the truth behind Alexander's actions and the mysterious transactions that were threatening our financial security. As I sat there, staring at Alexander, I realized that our perfect life was built on lies, and I was determined to expose them. I started making discreet inquiries, asking friends and family if they'd noticed anything unusual about Alexander's behavior. One friend mentioned that Alexander had asked to borrow money a few months ago, claiming it was for a business emergency. Another friend said Alexander had been acting strangely at a party, flirting with other women. The more I dug, the more I uncovered a web of deceit and betrayal. But I still didn't know the full extent of Alexander's actions. I decided to contact a financial advisor, hoping they could help me untangle the mess. As I sat in the advisor's office, going over our finances, I felt a sense of dread. This was bigger than I'd thought. The advisor explained that Alexander had taken out multiple loans in my name, using our home as collateral. He'd also maxed out our credit cards, using the money to fund his own business ventures. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could he do this to me? I left the advisor's office, determined to confront Alexander. When I got home, he was sitting on the couch watching TV. "Alexander, we need to talk," I said, my voice shaking with anger. He looked up, a mixture of guilt and defiance on his face. "What now?" he asked, his tone aggressive. I took a deep breath and let it all out. The loans, the credit cards, the deceit. Alexander listened, his expression growing more and more defensive. When I finished, he stood up, his eyes blazing with anger. "You're just being dramatic, Helena," he said. "You're overreacting." But I knew I wasn't overreacting. I knew that our marriage was on the brink of collapse, and that Alexander's actions had put our entire financial future at risk. And I was determined to take control, to protect myself and our assets, no matter what it took. The fight that followed was intense, with both of us screaming at each other. But when it was over, I knew I had to take action. I filed a police report, alerting them to the identity theft. I also contacted a lawyer, hoping to get a divorce and protect my assets. As I sat in my empty house, surrounded by the remnants of our shattered marriage, I knew that I had a long road ahead of me. But I was determined to rebuild, to start anew. And I knew that I would emerge stronger, more resilient, and more determined than ever. I sat across from Alexander, my eyes locked on his. "We need to talk," I said, my voice firm. He looked up from his phone, a hint of annoyance on his face. "What's going on, Helena?" he asked, his tone dismissive. "I know about the loans," I said, my voice steady. "I know about the credit cards. You've been lying to me, Alexander." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Helena, I can explain." "Explain?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You've taken out loans in my name, maxed out our credit cards. You've ruined our financial security." Alexander's expression changed, a mix of guilt and defensiveness flashing across his face. "I did it for us," he said, his voice laced with desperation. "I wanted to invest in a business opportunity. I didn't want to burden you with the details." I laughed, a cold, hard sound. "You didn't want to burden me? You've burdened us with debt, Alexander." He reached out, placing a hand on my arm. I shook it off. "Don't touch me," I said, my voice venomous. "You've broken my trust, Alexander. I don't know if I can ever forgive you." Alexander's face crumpled, and for a moment I saw a glimmer of the man I thought I knew, but it was too late. The damage was done. I stood up, my eyes blazing with anger. "I want a divorce," I said, my voice cold and detached. Alexander's face went white. "Helena, please," he begged, getting down on his knees. "Don't do this. I'll change, I promise." I looked at him, feeling a pang of sadness. "It's too late for promises, Alexander. I need to protect myself and our assets." I walked out of the room, leaving Alexander kneeling on the floor. I knew I had to act fast to secure our finances and my future. I contacted a lawyer, and we began the process of divorce and financial separation. As I sat in the lawyer's office, going over the documents, I felt a sense of determination wash over me. I would rebuild my life, start anew. I would not let Alexander's deception define me. I would rise above it, stronger and wiser. The days that followed were a blur of meetings with lawyers, financial advisors, and accountants. I worked tirelessly to untangle our finances, to secure our assets. Alexander's pleas and excuses fell on deaf ears. I was resolute, focused on my future. One day, as I was leaving the lawyer's office, I ran into an old friend. She asked about Alexander, and I hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. But something about her kind eyes made me open up. I told her everything. The loans, the credit cards, the lies. She listened, her expression sympathetic. "You're strong, Helena," she said. "You'll get through this." Her words were a balm to my soul, a reminder that I wasn't alone. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of resolve wash over me. I would get through this. I would rebuild my life, and I would emerge stronger, more resilient, and more determined than ever. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but I was ready. I would face it head-on, with courage and determination. Alexander's betrayal had shaken me, but it would not define me. I would rise above it, and I would thrive. As I walked away from the lawyer's office, I felt a sense of hope. I knew that I would be okay, that I would come out of this stronger and wiser. And I knew that I would never let anyone deceive me again. I would protect myself, my heart, and my future. I would be vigilant, always on guard against those who would seek to harm me. The truth had been revealed, and it had been painful. But it had also been liberating. I was free to start anew, to build a life on my own terms. And I was ready to take on the challenge, to face the future with courage and determination. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by papers and documents, my mind racing with thoughts of what to do next. I knew I had to take action, to protect myself and our assets. I started making phone calls, contacting creditors and financial institutions, trying to untangle the mess Alexander had created. "Hello, I'd like to report a case of identity theft," I said to one representative. "My husband has taken out loans and credit cards in my name without my knowledge or consent." The representative listened attentively, asking questions and providing guidance on what to do next. I spent hours on the phone, disputing charges and making reports. I also contacted a credit monitoring service, hoping to catch any further suspicious activity. As I worked, I felt a sense of determination growing inside me. I would not let Alexander's actions define me. I would take control of my life, my finances, and my future. The next day, I met with a financial advisor, going over our finances and making a plan to pay off the debt. "We'll need to prioritize the high-interest loans," she explained, "and consider consolidating some of the debt." I listened intently, taking notes and asking questions. As I left the meeting, I felt a sense of hope. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face the challenge head-on. I would rebuild my financial security, and I would emerge stronger and more resilient. I also started documenting everything, keeping a record of all the transactions and communications. I knew it would be important evidence in our upcoming divorce proceedings. One evening, Alexander came home late, looking tired and stressed. "Helena, can we talk?" he asked, his voice soft. I looked up from my laptop, where I was working on our finances. "What's there to talk about, Alexander?" I asked, my voice firm. "I know I've made mistakes," he said, sitting down next to me. "But I love you, and I want to make it work." I shook my head, feeling a mix of sadness and anger. "It's too late for that, Alexander," I said. "I've made up my mind. I want a divorce." Alexander's face fell, and for a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. But then I remembered all the lies, all the deception. I stood up, looking him straight in the eye. "I'm taking action, Alexander," I said. "I'm protecting myself and our assets. You need to face the consequences of your actions." Alexander looked defeated, slumping his shoulders in defeat. I knew he had finally realized the gravity of his actions. And I knew that I would not back down. I would fight for my future, for my financial security, and for my peace of mind. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. I worked tirelessly, rebuilding my financial security and preparing for the divorce proceedings. Alexander's attempts to reconcile fell flat, and I remained resolute in my decision. As the divorce proceedings began, I felt a sense of closure. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to move on. I would emerge from this experience stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. And I would never let anyone deceive me again. I sat in the courtroom, listening to the judge's words as he finalized the divorce proceedings. Alexander sat across from me, his eyes downcast, his shoulders slumped. I felt a sense of finality, knowing that our marriage was officially over. The judge's voice was firm as he delivered his verdict. "The marriage between Helena and Alexander is hereby dissolved," he said. "The terms of the divorce, including the division of assets and debts, will be finalized in the coming weeks." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. It was finally over. I stood up, gathering my belongings, and walked out of the courtroom, leaving Alexander behind. As I walked out of the courthouse, I felt a sense of freedom that I hadn't felt in years. I knew that I still had a long road ahead of me, rebuilding my life and my finances, but I was ready. I was determined to move forward, to start anew. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool breeze on my face. I knew that I would be okay, that I would emerge from this experience stronger and wiser, and I knew that I would never let anyone deceive me again. I walked to my car, got in, and started the engine. As I drove away from the courthouse, I felt a sense of closure, knowing that I had taken control of my life and my future. I drove to my new apartment, the one I had rented after leaving Alexander. It was a small place, but it was mine, and I was proud of myself for starting over. As I unpacked my belongings, I couldn't help but think about the journey that had brought me here. The lies, the deception, the betrayal. But I also thought about the strength I had found within myself, the determination to rebuild and start anew. I looked around my new apartment, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. This was my new beginning, my fresh start, and I was ready to make the most of it. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. I settled into my new routine, rebuilding my life and my finances. I started taking classes, learning new skills, and meeting new people. One day, I met someone new, someone who was kind and genuine. We started to talk, and I found myself opening up to him in ways I hadn't thought possible. He listened to my story, and he didn't judge me. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope. Maybe I wasn't alone after all. Maybe I had found someone who truly cared about me. As I got to know him better, I realized that he was different from Alexander. He was kind, honest, and genuine. And I found myself falling for him, slowly but surely. But I was cautious, knowing that I had been hurt before. I took my time, getting to know him better, and testing the waters. And as I looked into his eyes, I saw something there that gave me hope. Maybe this time, I had found someone who truly loved me for who I was. The turning point had come, and I was ready to move forward. I was ready to start anew, to build a life with someone who truly cared about me. And I knew that I would never go back to the way things were before. I was free, and I was ready to start my new life. I sat in my new apartment, surrounded by the familiar comforts of my own space. The divorce was final, and Alexander was out of my life for good. I felt a mix of relief and sadness, knowing that a chapter of my life had closed. As I looked around my apartment, I noticed the little things that reminded me of Alexander. The vase he had given me, the painting he had bought for our anniversary. I decided to get rid of them, to start fresh. I spent the day packing up Alexander's belongings, putting them in boxes and labeling them. I didn't want anything that reminded me of him. As I worked, I felt a sense of liberation, knowing that I was taking control of my life. When I finished packing, I took a deep breath and looked around my apartment. It was clean, tidy, and free of any reminders of Alexander. I felt a sense of pride, knowing that I had taken the first step towards starting anew. I decided to celebrate, to treat myself to something special. I went out to dinner, choosing a restaurant I had always wanted to try. As I sat at my table looking over the menu, I felt a sense of freedom. The waiter came over, and I ordered my meal. As I waited for my food to arrive, I took out my phone and started scrolling through social media. I saw messages from friends and family congratulating me on my new beginning. I smiled, feeling grateful for the support of my loved ones. I knew that I still had a long way to go, but I was ready. I was ready to start anew, to build a life that was mine alone. My food arrived, and I took a bite, savoring the flavors. It was delicious, and I felt a sense of satisfaction. I knew that I deserved this, that I deserved to be happy. As I finished my meal, I looked around the restaurant. I saw couples and families, people enjoying their meals and each other's company. I felt a sense of hope, knowing that I would find happiness again. I paid the bill and left the restaurant, feeling a sense of closure. I knew that I would always carry the memories of my marriage with me, but I was ready to move on. As I walked back to my apartment, I felt a sense of peace. I knew that I had made the right decision, that I had taken control of my life. And I knew that I would be okay. I opened the door to my apartment, stepped inside, and closed it behind me. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of finality. The aftermath of my marriage was over, and a new chapter of my life was beginning. I was ready. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt trapped or deceived? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. If you're going through a similar experience, know that you're not alone. Let's support each other and work towards healing and moving forward. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of resilience and strength. What's your story? Share it with us.